Hello, welcome to Rob's Models, and today I'm correcting a mistake. I've been building this Tamiya's F-16CJ Block 50 in the 1:72 scale, and I've got to say it's been a lovely kit, going together really well, and I just kind of got my momentum going with it. Been building this live on Twitch as I've been making it, getting carried away, and when I went to put some paint on it the other day, I realised once I'd got everything masked up, I looked at the paint code I needed, I got the paint out to do the next layer of the grey, and I realised that actually the colour I had already been put on the model. What I'd actually done is looked at my painting diagram that comes with the kit, and I had actually done everything that I needed to do and gone through, looked at the colour codes. Right, it's the AS27 I'd been needing to paint, which was the main sort of colour, and then I'd sort of got okay. I'd already worked out that was the AV71.097 that I was needing, the medium gunship grey, but for some reason I'd actually picked up the medium grey, not the medium gunship grey. Hadn't actually confirmed what the paint code was and done my painting of it. So it wasn't until I then masked up that area, masked all of that up, then went to put in the other bits, that I realised that actually I had the same paint in my hand, and I'd actually been using the one that ends in 114, the medium grey, which is a much more bluey colour. To be honest, I should have looked at the box art and just actually, if I'd just looked at the box art, that would have confirmed it's a lot more bluey than the grey for the main part. But I went ahead and basically took all the masking off. The area that was meant to be done, I then sprayed that colour, so basically having to go into reverse. I could just remask up. However, I had put some pre-shading on there, got the primer on there, and because it is quite a sort of a darkishy grey colour, I thought if I can actually try to take it back. So what I'm going to be doing today is just trying to remove the paint that I'd put on and take it back to the primer and the pre-shading if I can, and then put basically correct it. I'd actually done the priming and the pre-shading both with the AK Interactive primer, the Microfiller. So I went over with the white one, and then actually, because I'd already had that type in the airbrush, I then used the black one. Just saves having to clean up the airbrush so much, just to do my pre-shading. Then I'd actually painted it in the Vallejo Model Air. So my thinking is the Vallejo Model Air is actually quite a more delicate, not as tough as the AK primer that's gone down there. So this is sort of like an acrylic one. So my thinking is, and I have just done a little bit just before I actually started filming, just to check that this would work, is to take off this using IPA, Isopropyl Alcohol. I've got a big bottle of it, a litre of it, which I keep it in the wrapper just to be safe, because this is nasty stuff. Got a litre off of eBay for about £8 a few years back, and hardly used any of it, even though I use it all the time. And the idea is that the Vallejo Model Air will break down a lot easier than the primer will do. And the reason I'm going through this hassle is because there is lots of fine detail in there, and I could just think, okay, let's just ignore that pre-shading, but the pre-shading worked quite well on the bottom, so it'd be a shame to lose it on the top. Plus also there's some very fine details in there, and I'm thinking if I can actually just remove some of the paint, that will help me try to keep some of those details in there. Again, if it goes wrong, then all I'll be doing is putting the grey over there. I just won't have the pre-shading. Some of the finer details might get lost. I did do a very, very thin layer because I was conscious of trying to keep the details in there anyway for when doing a panel wash. So I have been a bit more, I was wary of it. I didn't put the primer and those sort of things on too thick. IPA, this shouldn't actually affect the plastic, and similarly, as long as I don't really soak it in there and scrub away too much, it shouldn't affect the primer layer too much either. So you can see I've just sort of been putting it on, and what I've been doing is I did try some different techniques using a bit of a cotton bud, kitchen roll, but I think with the toothbrush I found that actually works quite well. So I've got it in, I've put some IPA in a little dropper bottle, it just gives me a bit more control on it. That's useful for when putting it in airbrush, that sort of thing. So I found just let it sit there for a little moment, and then, I mean obviously as well, I've pre-masked up as well where I'm going to be painting. So partly that gives me the masking for the painting, but it's also hopefully going to mean that the IPA should I don't want it dripping onto the surfaces where I have actually painted it and done it up. Now what I do need to be careful of as well is of course the it dripping around there, because normally my method for masking the wings like this would just be to spray straight down, so it won't get paint on the upper side, but the IPA could quite easily drip round. So as you can see, what I'm doing is putting this on just a little, letting it just sort of sit on there for a moment just to start activating. It doesn't have to be perfect, to be honest. I mean, there is paint going to be going on there, and actually if this isn't perfect, that would be fine, because it would still add sort of almost a black basing tonal variation sort of thing going on underneath. But the main thing is I do just want to take it down and then try to rub it off. Now, one of the problems is as well is the IPA does dry very quickly. So what I'm finding is you've kind of not got too long, and I'm only doing it small sections at a time as well, just to keep control on it, is to work it in, get it sort of activating, but before it has a chance to dry off, then there you can see now start rubbing it whilst it's still wet. And now we can see that wing, some of the pre-shading that I'd actually put in. As I say, I'm not too worried about taking it right the way back down, because actually I could end up with some quite nice sort of effect going on. And there, one of the things that might work against me a little bit is when I was doing the painting, I did actually put some thinners and some thinners and the flow improver in to the Vallejo, and that sometimes I do find does sometimes toughen it up a little bit. Just try to get in that gap there, and as you can see, as I'm rubbing it, suddenly we're going back to the white with the pre-shading. So that is working, and as I said, I don't want to just go crazy on it. Let's do it in small sections, come back, have a few goes at it, just because if I just try and do it all in one hit, I don't really want to be potentially damaging anything. As I say, it does dry off very quick as well. Because it does dry quite quick, it shouldn't take too long between putting it on and when I can then actually get it repainted. Actually, I'll say if I was to really go heavy on this, I could, I think, sort of even start taking the primer off and start going down to the plastic. But if I can just get it enough so that I take the top coat off, or top coats. The annoying thing is as well, is not only did I just paint this in the colour, once I'd actually got the main colour on, I then used a little bit of white in the, put some white in the airbrush as well, just whilst there's still a little bit of the colour in the colour cup. Just start trying to lighten it a little. I think what was happening is, I think subconsciously I'd realised it was looking too dark, and was therefore wanting to sort of lighten it a bit. So I was putting some white, mixing it in with the grey that was already in the colour cup, then just put another thinned down layer with the white in. So hopefully that's now started to eat into there. And you see as we rub it, now taking it off. Now there's not so much actually pre-shading on the wings and so much detail. There is some finer riveting detail though, and I say it would be a shame to lose it if I can save it. So rub that in. Don't be because the primer is very thin, I am of course slightly wary of the IPA. No, sorry, because the IPA is very thin, I am wary of it going underneath the masking. So far, we could be getting away with this. Bit of decal from another project. Now, this is the good thing about the Vallejo paint, is it isn't that you know, it's not a really sort of a tough paint, so to speak. It is quite fragile, and giving it a bit of a go over with a toothbrush and some IPA, it's taking it off quite nicely. One of the reasons why I'm using the toothbrush as well is because there is the recessed detail. I was thinking if I were to just wipe it without doing the toothbrush, what I could just be doing is taking off the surface but leaving it still in the recesses. So if anything, I could actually be using the paint as a filler, almost a very fine filler, to lose some of those surface details. But you can see that really starting to come through. As I say, I'm not worried about removing it 100%. My main concern is to get the bulk of it off, because I don't want, if I start going in for 100%, that's when I could actually start potentially damaging it. And if it gives a bit of a sort of any sort of a, almost like the black facing mottling sort of effect going on underneath. It's not to say that I would want to replicate this. I mean, it could come out quite nicely, but yeah, not to say I'd want to be doing this process over and over. Also got to be wary, I'm not spraying it around, so I'm not wearing a mask and I haven't got the spray boot on, but this stuff is quite smelly, so it's obviously, you know, I don't want to spend too long doing it or breathing in the fumes. But as I say, I'm not often, I use the IPA as a you know, a thinner. It's great with Tamiya paints, much better than X28, to be perfectly honest. I've suggested to a few people who have done that recently. I know in the States it can be a bit tough trying to get the 99% stuff, but if you can hunt it down, it is worth the hassle, because you will suddenly find you'll get a much smoother finish if you're spraying than just using the X28 as your thinner. But then you are sort of adding a few more chemicals into the mix. So we are slowly getting there. I think you can definitely see pre-shading definitely coming through. It's not as fine as what it was before, obviously. It's now pre-shading through a bluey grey filter. Finally, when I'm rubbing it with the toothbrush, it kind of is thinning it, but it's not really moving it. It's not like I'm cleaning it off. It's not until I wipe the toothbrush on and then wipe it with a paper towel that then it actually really removes it. Or even scrubbing it with the toothbrush, it's just letting it, the colour's still sitting on the surface. Yeah, I can see there that I am actually starting to, I actually took that down there to the plastic almost. I think that is actually plastic showing through. To be honest, again, that's fine. It's a grey going over the grey, but obviously just got to be more wary of that. So that was probably because I got a little bit carried away with the toothbrush working it into the paint. I think we're pretty much there. What I'll do is give it a little bit more in a few little areas, and then just use the cotton bud. Just sort of almost pick it out, just more of the grooves, getting close to where the masking is, up on the edges. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. I've just got to keep reminding myself that before I could start rubbing so much that I'd take it down to plastic. If this goes well, I do actually have a Eurofighter in the 48 scale, which I actually want to repaint, and actually that was one of the main reasons I actually bought the IPA for. I discovered it was made a really good thinner for Tamiya paints after I'd already bought a litre of the stuff. But the main purpose was so I could strip down, which I've still not done, a Eurofighter, because actually with that one I'd actually attempted to paint that in Humbrol paints. I know, crazy. I now learnt from a mistake. When I first got my airbrush, there's a picture of an airbrush on the side of Humbrol, and it does say that they can go through an airbrush, and I guess technically they can, and that doesn't mean you should. So obviously I want to revisit that one. Because it dries quickly, you can find that actually you're just rubbing paint with a cotton bud. It's no longer, the IPA is obviously very volatile. Isopropyl alcohol, 99% stuff. And you can evaporate before you really know what you need to do. Just keep your masking in place as well. Technically this wasn't painted wrong, this just needs to have another colour, and I've masked that up anyway, so this is actually going to be a different colour. But whilst I'm doing this, I will give it a rub over, because it will just take off some of the edges for the masking that I had on previously. Really won't make a blind bit of difference, but hey, as I'm there. So we've got that now. You can see pre-shading definitely coming through. It's a grey colour, and I'm going to be putting whatever, double check which grey it is, that's going to be going over there. So to be honest, the pre-shading is now a lot more muted and filtered to what it was anyway. It's now got that blue under it, so not going to be ideal. However, it's at least going to be the correct colour, and possibly will give me a bit more of a more natural weathered look. Actually, I don't want this to be a dirty plane, so I do want it to be clean. So therefore the pre-shading is going to be sort of quite important on that one, so I can actually pick out these details with the pre-shading, or the small subtle shadowing at least of the details. And a final wipe over. And of course I've still got to do the tail planes as well, mustn't forget those. So this is really just to try to take off the streaks. Now, how much I might have lost in the recessed detail, I probably have lost some of it because it's obviously easier to remove the paint from the surface and not the recesses. But you live and learn, so moral of the story is double or even triple check your paint, especially when you're using two greys that are also similarly named. Don't just assume that you've picked up the correct one. I mean, I'm still not sure how I actually did it, because I'd actually spent a bit of time, I think probably just got blasé, I'd spent a bit of time checking and making sure that I had the right paint codes, cross-referencing it all, and yeah, so I had all the correct paint codes and just picked up the wrong bottle at the, you know, the final hurdle. At the time when I was painting and it was coming out a lot more bluer than I expected, for some reason I didn't stop. I should have just because I was live streaming I think at the time, I didn't just take the couple of minutes just to myself, just to assess, ask myself a question. Why has it done that? Why does that not look right? Okay, let's call that done on there. Still a few little bits coming around, but I'm afraid that if I start trying to rub off some of the more stubborn parts, I'll be taking off other details. But yeah, definitely more muted than what it was, but I've got a lovely smooth finish to it. I mean, I did actually rub down the primer beforehand. Final bit, let's just make sure I do the correct side of these tail planes. So again, just pop on a little the IPA. That's actually just sort of soaking on there actually. No real panel lines on here apart from one line. That's a lot easier, isn't it? So you can see it's rubbing it off. So taking it down, but it's sort of, yeah, you can see it's breaking it down, but it's not really rubbing it off. So and now it's already dried in place actually. That's how quick it actually evaporates. So I think that one there. There we go, and that's back to the white primer. I have actually rubbed a bit too much. I have actually taken off some of the pre-shading. That's probably what's been happening there as well. So obviously it's taking it down to the primer, but I am also removing some of the pre-shading. Now I could always, if I really was that worried about it, just blow in some of the pre-shading again, but I don't think I need to with that. So those are down to there, and there's not that much difference between that and the grey colour on the other side, so I must make sure I keep those fine. So I reckon we're going to call that done. I'm not going to push that anymore. I am tempted to get in a few little areas in there, but I think that's actually going to be safer in the long run if I just leave it and just accept there's a few little parts there that probably could come off, and it might just add a little bit of a tonal variety actually to the finishing one. So just going to pack this bit up, and then because that's already dried off, might as well just get on and get the let's just check, it's the AS27 which translates to the AV 71.097 medium gunship grey. So make sure, let's pop those away. Actually, I want that one as well. That's for the nose cone, which is a slightly different grey. As I say, that was going to be getting masked up and painted anyway, so might as well do that. Get a bit of paint on here, and then I can get that on and let that dry, so then I can carry on with the rest of the build as I've been planning to. Okay, so we've got that down. That's looking pretty dark now at the moment actually, and I can make out some of the pre-shading. However, there's also a few little areas where there's not quite enough paint down. So what I will do is take a bit of kitchen towel, paper towel, just have a square of this, dump out what's in the cup naturally, because there's still a little, not much in there, but take out as much surplus as what I can. So we've got some grey in there. Now take a little touch of white. So there's some Vallejo, just basic 001 white. Put in one drop in there. Drop, okay, that was one drop in there. Then take some of the thinner, couple of drops of the thinner. Now this is going to make it quite shiny and it's going to take ages to dry. So now I'm just going to be putting down through it a very thinned, lightened version of that grey. Just to give it a sort of a break up and just a uniform lighten. Now what I could do, just focus maybe on a few little areas a little more. That would do. You can see it's very shiny there, but we have got a little bit of the pre-shading still coming through, which is nice. Not as much, but probably more than if I'd actually just put it over, and it does look, although it is still quite wet and that's what's taking most of the shine, I can make out panelled lines, rivet details, those sort of things. So hopefully I've now managed to rescue that F-16, which could have actually had, quite an embarrassing inverse paint job on there, or just would have lost quite a bit of detail on there. Not just the recessed detail, but also that tonal sort of variation that we got with the pre-shading. Wouldn't have been, it would have been more annoying, but for the sake of an hour, or less than an hour actually, half hour with a bit of IPA, a little bit of patience, just moving that around and then respraying it, I think we got back to what the colours should be and still got some of that variation. So I'm just going to wrap up now. What I will do is I'll pop this one out on YouTube, because this is a little, I was thinking of doing this part of my live build on Twitch, but wasn't too sure how this was going to turn out. So I thought actually what I'll do, save it as a YouTube video so it's a good reference point, and then I can get on and pick up with the actual build of it live on Twitch. If you're not following me on Twitch, head over to twitch.tv/robsmodels, see how I'm getting on there. By the time you watch this video I might have finished that and be working on something else as well. Hit the subscribe, and yeah, make sure to keep track of what I'm doing, where I'm doing it. So I've been Rob, thanks for watching, Have fun, take care, keep modelling, and look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thanks guys.